Hey everybody, this is Bohdan Drozdov, ex-head of growth at Adapty, and now I am entrepreneur and growth architect. You're listening to Humans in Growth podcast. Here I invite growth manager, product and marketing leads to talk about the experience, career in growth approaches. Today, my guest is Justyna, head of growth at Beducated, growth mentor and lecturer. We will discuss her career paths and story. Since this is first episode of this podcast, I would be very glad for your feedback. So write it whenever you can. And thank you. Let's go listen. So
Okay.
let's start. Just tell me about yourself. What do you do?
So my name is Justyna Ciecierska. That is a very difficult last name. And as it might suggest, I come from Poland, but I split my time in between two countries, Poland and the Netherlands. I live like half of the time of the year there and half of the time here in the Netherlands. Right now I'm in the Netherlands. Why the Netherlands? Because my husband is Dutch. That's it for personal, on the personal note. On a professional note, I am head of growth at Beducated, and Beducated is a platform with sex ed courses, which help you basically level up your bedroom game. So if you're interested, please head to beducated.com and you can check it out. But that's not all that I'm doing. Of course, I'm a full-time head of growth, but on the side, I'm a lecturer at a business school in Rotterdam, and I'm a mentor at growthmentor.com. And recently, I get a lot of requests for monthly coaching or weekly coaching, regular coaching, which is a great confirmation for me that I'm doing something right. So I think my approach is really working for a lot of my mentees, because what I'm doing is I'm strongly focusing on very actionable coaching that is focused on the goal of my mentee, and we can really do something, achieve something within this 1 hour session. So if you're interested, if you need someone to get you unstuck somewhere, head to growthmentor.com and find me there. My name is Justyna Ciecierska. I'm sure you will find how to type it in somewhere in the description of this podcast.
Yeah, yeah, that's a funny like to listen podcast with marketers because like there are a lot of advertising of yourself of myself. So yeah, that's okay. And yeah, you mentioned that you think that you do something right because like you feel it and all these like things. Could you tell me like about beginning of of your career and how do you understand that you doing something right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a good question. I think there are three factors that kind of contributed to me being where I am right now. And that doesn't have much to do with what I did right, maybe. What I did basically is I introduced serendipity in my life and in my career. That's factor number one. Factor number two is following my heart and my intuition a little bit more than I used to. And the third factor is not being afraid to fail. That's super important, especially if you're in growth. You know that. So what do I mean with serendipity? I think it started, the story begins when I was a teenager. And as a teenager, I really wanted to have everything figured out, like my whole entire future. I wanted to have it figured out. So I spent a lot of time trying to make wise decisions and create long-term plans. And I remember that I was at the point where I was deciding where and what to study. I graduated from high school and I was like, okay, what the hell will I do with my life now? And I knew that for some reason, I don't know why, I wanted to be a translator. I wanted to be a professional translator from Polish to English, English to Polish. But I knew that that was not a great career, a little bit boring, probably not much jobs out there. And I knew that in tech or somewhere in more like science related areas, there would be more jobs and better, more exciting careers. So I made this very reasonable decision to not follow my heart, but follow the reason. And so I went to a technical university and I studied spatial economy. I'm not going to get into details. That sounds really strange. And it was strange. The bottom line is that I chose something that I really hated. I hated math, I hated physics, and I had it all at the university. So But then I realized that when I joined a students association there, I got in touch with a corporation called XTB. Do you know maybe Forex, foreign exchange?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so they were doing some sort of like a competition for students, and they asked me to do social media for them. And I obviously I agreed to that, and I really loved it. That's how I kind of got hooked on marketing. That was my first moment when I had something to do with marketing. And it didn't even matter that I chose a study that is not related to marketing at all. I ended up on this path anyway. So somehow the universe and all the stars aligned in this direction, and yeah, I ended up doing that. And I was climbing up the ladder there, and I was doing all kinds of stuff that really excited me. And that's how my career in marketing started. So that was the moment where I realized you just have to leave some space for serendipity in your life, because whatever has to happen will happen, and you can't just make a plan for your life in that sense. Yeah, so moving on, working at that corporation back then, it was back then in Poland, in Warsaw. The office was in Warsaw. I started to feel a little bit. I started to feel like I need some more freedom in my career, in my life. Obviously, the corporation world didn't suit me for many reasons, like the politics, everything going slow, everything being stiff, having to show up dressed in a certain way at a certain time. That was just not something that I wanted to be stuck for the rest of my life. So I just decided to make a bold move and really create the perfect conditions for serendipity, and just move to the Netherlands and see what happens. Like, I didn't have a job, I didn't have a plan, I only had my future husband. Back then, it was still a boyfriend to me. I just thought, okay, let's just do something, like, I don't know, something will come. And it did. I had a chance to build my own sort of digital agency. I learned how to make animations. So I was selling animations, like promotional videos, some companies in the Netherlands. I don't know, like, it just happened. It just came on my way. And so I accepted this and I tried it, and I didn't like it. So then I was like, okay, cool. I don't know how to run my own agency. I don't know how to do this. This is not for me. I learned something. I'm happy, and I will move on. So then I found a job in growth hacking. And back then I had no idea what it was, but I started at an agency in Rotterdam. That was, I think, the tipping point in my career. From there on, things just moved super fast, and I learned so quick, and I jumped up the ladder really fast in a matter of like 3 or 4 years. I came from a junior growth hacker to head of or growth manager, which was really amazing. And yeah, I think again, serendipity, following my intuition, following what I really like to do, and not being afraid to fail, doing all kinds of stuff, failing, and getting back up again and trying something else. That's basically what brought me to where I am right now.
Yes, that's great. You mentioned that you didn't like to work in corporation because of like lack of freedom and all the stuff. How, what do you mean by freedom? Or freedom like of do what do you do, or some responsibilities, maybe some other things?
Yeah, I think there are many levels to that. First of all, I just didn't like showing up at 9 a.m. and leaving home not earlier than 5 p.m. That was the number one reason, obviously. But also, another level is the freedom, in a sense that you cannot do as much as you would like to, because there are many restrictions, there are many rules, there are some politics involved. Your ideas get killed because somebody else has a different agenda or is in a different department that has different goals. And these things just made me feel really suffocated. And yeah, it was just not for me, basically.
Yeah, you also like said that you, and I agree that you did some bold moves when you changed another, I don't know, career or project or company to another, and it's kind of different. I also bet that you have some other ideas what else you can do at this point, but how do you evaluate these opportunities or things that you want to do? maybe you prioritize, or maybe you have some goal. How do you understand, okay, I want to jump in this, okay, this is risky, but do you have some thoughts, decisions, or could you tell me more?
Yeah. Oh, that's a beautiful question. I think the short answer here is really listening to my heart. I know it sounds really fluffy, but that's what I learned. Like when I know that something really excites me, that when I feel it deep down that I don't know what it's gonna bring, I don't know what it's gonna be, but I'm so excited. I really want to jump into that in terms of because you're asking about the career choices, right, and where to work.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Continue. Everything is okay.
Yeah, I feel like for example, my latest career choice, that was such a clear sign to me that I just have to jump on it because I found Beducated on LinkedIn. I found the job opening there for head of growth, and something about the company and its mission and vision really appealed to me because I came from the environment where I was working at an agency for a lot of clients, and I didn't have the sense of purpose. The sense of purpose was not really satisfied within me, and I felt like I really wanted to contribute with my work to something bigger, to make people's lives better, happier, in whatever sense, in whatever way possible. And Beducated was actually one of those companies that has a beautiful mission of improving people's sexual happiness and improving relationships between people. And that was something that really resonated with me. So that was already like the first point where I realized this is really something for me. And another part of that was that I really knew that this company was growing pretty fast and I really wanted to be a part of its success. So I knew that the product was good. I knew that they had some funding and they were preparing for the Series B. And I just knew there was a lot to do, a lot to win. And I wanted to, maybe this, it's a bit of an ego talking here, but I wanted to be head of growth that is standing behind the growth together with the growth team there. Um, and make this whole thing a success because I really believe in what they're doing, we are doing.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And also, based on my experience, I guess it's crucial to understand like that you bring some value to the world, I don't know, to other people, because I guess I believe that all people want to be a good ones, and maybe in different ways. But yeah, also you like talk about this different steps or maybe levels, like that you like cross company to another company to agency and all the stuff. I bet you have some thoughts maybe that you are not ready for this job, or some like voices in your heads, maybe I'm not good enough. I know that like there are a lot of problems with it, because I don't know why, to be honest. I just have some thoughts. Do you have some thoughts, or like that you sometimes don't believe in yourself, or you just like always, okay, I can do it, it's easy, and just jump, or it's much complicated?
Whew, you're asking really good but difficult questions. I mean, of course, it is always a thing. It's called imposter syndrome, and I think I don't want to say especially in marketing is the case, but I just keep on hearing from my peers that this is a big problem. And of course, you do need some level of humility, maybe being humble in that area to be a little bit open to other people's opinions and not be this I know it all kind of a person. But yes, I do get that a lot. I do have these thoughts a lot that I'm feeling really insecure, and especially when I was working at the agency where I had to face a client and really advise them on something. I felt like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing actually. I don't know if my advice is the right one. And these things were really driving me crazy especially when I still didn't have much experience. But with experience and with constant feedback and really paying attention to feedback from other people, this sort of fades out. What I also feel that helps that I did recently was a very simple thing. I put a sticky note on my screen saying "care less." that was the only thing that really helped me, because in every meeting that I was just looking at this sticky note, and I thought, okay, just care less, just it's not so important, it's just fun, just have fun with it, you know. And then your whole perception really changes from, oh my god, I have to be the best, I have to know it all, to it's just fun, let's play with it, let's just do something awesome together, you know. And another thing that helped me was, because in my head I always thought I have to know it all, right? I have to always give an answer. When somebody asks me a question, I always need to have a good answer. But that's not true. Nobody's perfect. Nobody has all the answers to all the questions. And so I learned to say either I don't know, or I don't know now, but I can find out later, or I don't agree with you right now, but I don't know how to explain that to you. So just give me a little bit space and time to think about it, just to create exactly the space for yourself to marinate a bit on what you want to talk about, what you want to say. And that does wonders, really. And you really don't have to know it all. You don't have to be the best at everything. Nobody's the best at everything. Just reminding yourself about that really
Yeah,
helps.
yeah, you talked a lot about joy, like that you like get from your work or like from achievements, and that's great that like you feel the joy because I know a lot of people, even my parents, then just don't like jobs and they think that, oh, it's just money and all the stuff. And it's great that I have more and more examples on another side how you can approach to your job. And sometimes, yeah, I agree. You need just to relax and just have a joy during some meetings,
Exactly.
conversations. Yeah, that's why I try to make a lot of jokes. I have some, I don't know, funny suits, funny glasses, just to, I don't know, just to have fun. Because also when I work with this approach, and it's my opinion that like when you work in marketing and growth, you work with a lot of uncertainty, like market uncertainty, all the stuff, and can just experiment different things, but you need to have joy in the process because you have a lot of fails. And if you will
Exactly.
focus only on this goal, you can just, I don't know, lose energy and just lose motivation. So yeah, that's great when you have some fun. You also talked a lot about communication, that you can say, I don't know, or I don't know yet. Do you have maybe some, not principles, but ideas how do you build communication inside your team? Because as I understand you now, head of growth, so obviously you have some teammates or some specialists who work with you or who are lead. So how do you build this communication? Because it's great that you can communicate honestly. Okay, I don't like this idea. I don't know why, but I don't like. And you also talked about this intuition, and I guess that's also this some voices of your inner intuition. Like, how do you build this communication? So, like, what do you do for this?
Hmm. I think it's a matter of establishing some ground rules with your team in the beginning. And I know that maybe these ground rules are not always going to be followed, or they're not going to be followed unless you don't lead by example. So you establish the ground rules, and then you follow them, and you remind other people to follow them, like, every day. My rules are really being honest and straightforward. And when I say that, I mean it, and I create the environment to be straightforward and honest. So I ask the questions that will create, or that will get the feedback that I need from my teammate. For example, I will really encourage them to give feedback. I will ask the questions like, what do you think? Do you like this idea? You can say that it's not a good idea because I don't know everything, and you might know something that I don't know. So just really trying to make get yourself with your team on the same level. There is no hierarchy, there is no manager or employee kind of relationship. There is just the team, one team, a couple of people working towards the same goal. And that is very important, that you create this environment where people really feel that they can talk to you about anything. and you will not hold it against them, and they know that there is always a follow-up. And that is another thing. You can say all you want, you can communicate all kinds of things with your team, but if there is no follow-up and there is no action afterwards, they will lose respect, and they will not treat you as a leader, and they will not follow your rules then, or ground rules that you set up for the communication. So I always, when I'm in meetings, I make sure that whatever we decide is being documented, and everybody knows what to do, and whatever I promise to do I also write down, and I follow up on this right after the meeting. And I think another thing that is kind of puts another layer on top of this communication challenge is that the work from home situation, or remote work, and that makes it extra difficult to communicate with your team. I think I'm still struggling with it, but I do have some rules for, like, okay, for task related conversations, please use ClickUp. ClickUp is our project management system. For some other questions unrelated to any tasks, but just questions to the team about opinions or ideas or whatever, use Slack. And there's like a whole playbook or a whole guideline document which we're all following to make sure that we stay sane, because on some days Slack can really blow up, and then you lose track of whatever you discussed. So you need these rules. When is the meeting also needed? Is the meeting really needed, or can you maybe record a Zoom video, or maybe we can do a quick huddle on Slack? Do we need to invite so many people? So really encouraging your team to think twice before they schedule this meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I will do something from it to improve communication. And yeah, thank you. Also, you when you talked about first job, when some company or university, company hired you as social media manager or something like that, you said that you like it. What exactly do you like it, like in this job and in term of marketing? I already understand that you love to work with people and to build this communication, but if we're talking about more technical skills, what do you enjoy, maybe not, or maybe hate something?
Yeah, so I think what I really liked from the very beginning when I started working in marketing was, I think you already mentioned, working with different tools. I think I'm a bit of a geek in that sense, and I just like to try out all different tools and just set up, like, preferably very complex systems, and workflows and automations. It's not working very well most of the time. So when I do that, but I really like doing that. And from the very first time when I started working as a social media manager, I had to not only use some social media scheduling tools, but also analytics tools and Photoshop to create posts and stuff. And that was the beginning of that. From there on, I really fell in love with that. That's one thing. And I still like to do that. As a head of growth, obviously, I don't have that much time to dig into the nitty gritty things, like, I don't know, setting up measurement on websites or on apps, or really diving deep into something that would take me a few days to set up. I used to like to do that. I don't have that much time to do this now. But then again, I do have more space now for strategic thinking and really planning long or short term. And this is also another thing that I really, really love. And why I love it is because I like to put the reality of a business onto one sheet with a growth plan or growth
Yeah,
model, where I can tweak some,
yeah,
variables and say, okay, if we increase the conversion rate, what is it going to do to our MRR this year? Or all kinds of stuff
yeah,
like that, until you get to this point where all these variables align, and they are actually they seem realistic, and then you're very, very motivated to get started. And that when this comes true, when you keep on seeing these green bars, meaning that you're hitting your goals for this month or for this year, that's just so satisfying. I guess that's what I love
yeah.
the most.
Yeah, I know this feeling when you're like, I know that by my experience, firstly, I had a lot of struggles with this modeling and all the stuff because like you always find some errors, wrong calculation, and all the stuff, and you just, oh no,
I
how
know.
how to do this, how to do this, and all these struggles. Yeah, I understand. And what I can say by my experience, like about modeling all the stuff, maybe after some years in psychotherapy, I just figure out that for myself, it's just my experience that I love to build all the system with numbers, predictions, and all the stuff just to understand like as much context as possible. But then when I have this data, I can make some emotional decisions. Also, like that you talk based on professional intuition or something like that. And I think that it's great balance because I met a lot of people that are great with numbers and calculation, but most of the time it's all about past, not like even current situation or future. So sometimes you need this irrational voice in your head or just motivation to do something and or maybe to even sell with this data your strategy to stakeholders, to team. Yeah, so yeah, I know this feelings. And also, like you mentioned that you worked like firstly in agencies and in Beducated. And as I understand, in firstly you join Beducated not as head of growth. And could you tell me more about this transition from growth marketer or growth manager to head of growth? Like, which struggles do you have? Because I have similar experience with this transition, and I know it's not easy one to go from individual contributor to leader or manager. So, could you tell me about your experience?
That's a very good question. I think, first of all, the problem starts already at the definition and the like blurry lines between who is growth manager, who is head of growth, who should we call it growth hacker, growth marketer? Is it growth hacking? Is it growth marketing? There's so many questions. So, and how many people you ask, you get this many different definitions. And that's what I was struggling with. And also, I remember my team and also the founder of Beducated, we were kind of, they were like, what are you going to do here? Like, what is it? And then I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this and this and this and that. And they're like, oh, so you're going to do everything. And then you really end up doing everything. And then the faster you do it, the more people ask from you, that, and also you yourself, you ask more of yourself. And then you're being really stretched thin. So I feel like when I just started as a growth manager, that seemed like a little bit lower level, and just you had your own little world where you were mostly working on. I was working on acquisition, trying to tap into different channels, see what works. And then all of a sudden, I was offered the position of head of growth just because there was this need, like the company was growing, the founders needed more advice on the bigger picture, bigger than the acquisition. And then I really had to make a decision: where do I draw the line? Where can I actually do hands-on work, and where can I do all the planning and budgeting and creating strategies and really being the Swiss knife of the company. And that's been really tough for a few months until I realized that focus is key here. So as a head of growth, you really have to, that's a part of your job, most important part of your job, where you look at the funnel, you look at the metrics, and you find this one spot that is the most important thing right now for the business to improve in order to unlock the potential for growth further. And since I did that, since I really took my time to create a growth model and see where we really have to act right now, and I just stripped everything else that we had on the backlog and on our agendas, And I communicated it clearly to the team, like these are the top 3 things that we have to do in the coming few months. Nothing else should distract us. Please remove everything from your agendas. We're doing that. Then I felt much more calm. My team also started to feel more secure, or even some of them said that they were at the verge of burnout. And the moment we did that, we introduced this really strict focus, they said, I'm feeling so much better. I feel I can contribute. I know what to do. Every day I have a clear list of tasks. Everything is great. And we also seeing results. So really working smarter, not harder, is the key here, especially when you're head of growth. That's basically the bottom line.
Yeah, and let's just talk more about growth modeling, maybe because it's so interesting for me right now. You talk like that you build some growth model with all these metrics, all this data, and some maybe growth prediction, or maybe you already build growth model based on growth prediction from investors or stakeholders. But imagine that you already have the situation, this, I don't know, Google Sheets or something like that. How do you understand maybe the point of the funnel or stage or things where should you focus? Because yeah, obviously there are some times that you can see just like critical low conversion rates on some stage, but sometimes you don't have so obvious issues, problems, challenges. So, how do you prioritize this? How do you because I think that, and I think that you also know this, that it's important not only to understand where should you focus or your team should focus, but also prove it to your team. Because as you said, some people like in stress, and after like some decisions they feel some relief. So how to understand this point, where should you focus, and then how to communicate it to stakeholders and to the team.
So for me, it was really, I already had a hunch what needed to be done. Like you said, following intuition was the starting point here. And I was trying already based on this intuition to convince my team and the founders to do the thing that I wanted to do. And I remember that nobody was really convinced. They were like, yeah, whatever, it's too much. We're not going to do that. So then I just took my time to create this growth model, and I created these variables that we could tweak. And then I showed them, look, if I tweak the conversion rate here, look what happens to the bottom line. Look what happens to the revenue. So in our case, it was conversion rate on the website. That was really, really low. And we also collected a lot of feedback from our users that there was a lot of problems with our pricing. So we decided to test pricing. And the moment when I showed the team, like, hey, if we change the pricing, this is going to do this to the conversion rate, this is going to do this to the revenue and the bottom line, then they were like, oh, okay, now we see it, you know? And then from there on, you can really get the urgency and the momentum to really build something and test really quickly. So I think this is the most important thing. Just you have a hunch, go collect as much data as possible, make it quite conservative, realistic, model the growth, see how it goes for the coming 12 months, maybe 6 months, maybe even further than that. And yeah, and then show it, tell the story behind your numbers, and that will
Yeah.
convince people.
Yeah, I think it's again about communication inside the team, like how do you make decisions and how to communicate these decisions. And you talked about like, let's imagine I just joined to new company, and you like as we discussed, by your experience, you first some you model growth, make some
Hmm.
Google Sheets, something like that, and then you like decided to test some hypothesis or work some stage of the funnel. Do you have some approaches to I don't know, speed of the testing? Maybe do you use to some cycles, I don't know, weekly, bi-weekly, sprints or iterations or monthly?
Hmm.
Like, Do you have some cycles, periods, like how do you test, or it's just chaotic?
Yeah, definitely. When you have a whole growth team that consists of multiple different people across the team, not only marketers, obviously, but developers, content creators, and so on, you really need a very strict structure. Otherwise, there is no speed. There will be no speed because everybody will be so spread across their own things. So what we do is we have 2 weeks sprints, and we have a meeting cadence that is broken down into backlog refinement sessions, a sprint demo and sprint planning sessions, these two in one, and then retro sessions. And I created a Figma file for my team to kind of explain to them what is the goal for each meeting and also how to prepare for each meeting. Everybody had to be prepared for each meeting. And how they prepared was by either submitting a new hypothesis that they found, what they came up with, or picking the one that was already on the backlog and trying to refine that by adding the pi score, adding some data points supporting this hypothesis, basically anything that would help us make a better decision on what to pick up first to test. What I also did is obviously if you have no limitations to your creativity, then your mind goes all kinds of ways, and then you're blocked. So what I did is I gave my team a very strict focus for the coming sprint or for the coming month, for example. And when I tell them, hey, our retention rate is very low, for example, then they can come up with ideas on how to improve that. And then we can easily prioritize these ideas because then we compare them to each other and see what effect this idea has on the retention rate, as opposed to everybody submitting ideas about all kinds of different to improve all kinds of different metrics, and then you don't know what to choose because you don't know what's most important in the end. So yeah, just creating this visualized meeting cadence, making sure that people are really preparing for the meeting before the meeting, the day before, not just 5 minutes before, just really taking their time, and giving the focus for the sprint so that you can test really fast. And one more thing as a bonus tip, you need to make sure that during your meetings you have roles. So there is a moderator that moderates the meeting. There's a growth master, we call it, which is really challenging every idea, challenging how we're going to be testing things. You need to have a product owner that protects the brand or the product and the roadmap, and also a note taker, a very good note taker that will make sure that all the ideas, all the feedback, all the learnings, and the action points are written down.
Yeah, yeah, this is great, and yeah, I already know that it's important to have a person who write notes, because I already forgot a few questions that I had for you. Yes, so definitely I need to do something with it. You also mentioned that you're responsible for, as head of growth, you're responsible for some budget planning and for some finances that are related to your team. Could you tell me how do you work with budget planning and all this stuff? Because for me, like by my experience, I had a lot of struggles because, for example, founder like said to me, okay, we need to grow like some percents per year or per month. And how much money do we need? And you just try to predict, but you don't know like exact acquisition channels that there are so much uncertainty. Do you maybe do you have different plans based on, you know, how do you manage it? How do you manage this uncertainty in future? Because you need to have some prediction to understand how much tests do you need and all the stuff. How do you work with this uncertainty with planning?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very tough question, and I think a lot of people would like to get a good answer on this one, indeed. Um, so it depends on which stage the company is at. So let's assume that there is no historical data and you're just starting. You're just starting, you would have no idea what works, what doesn't work. There, at this point, you really rely on your experience on the benchmarks that you have from your previous experiences, maybe some benchmarks that you find online. And if in terms of finding the right channel, what I like to do is having like this, how do you call it? Channel, product channel fit. And you kind of take that as a baseline where you are like, okay, this channel will be scalable, but it's not a great fit for our target audience. But it might be, from my experience, is kind of cheap. And then you kind of prioritize these channels as just like you would with hypothesis, basically. And then you set up a certain level of metrics that you know, or you think that it's going to be at this level. So for example, I have experience with Google Ads, so I know that this more or less is the right level of conversion rate or clicks or click rate or whatever. And then you just test it for a month, for example, depending on how much budget you really have. On Google it can be really much, so there's also certain level, like it requires some certain level of experience with different channels to know how much you actually need to test, how much budget you need to be able to even get any significant results. So for example, with Google, all Google advisors will tell you that, yeah, 5K per month is like, don't even start. For example, Quora ads or Reddit ads, these are very cheap channels which you can test with I don't know, 1,000 or 2,000 euros per month. So this already gives you some sort of indication, or okay, can I afford it? Yes or no? Like, what is the minimum for testing? It's 5K. I cannot afford 5K. Let's go to a cheaper channel and see how this one works. Basically, at this stage, you just need to have some data to have a baseline, and that's it.
Yeah. You talked a lot about data, and that's great. That's obvious that you need some data to measure even your improvements or like any changes. But I also know the struggle, like when you have a lot of data and you just don't understand where to focus. Do you have some, I don't know, approaches how you decide which metrics should I focus right now, or maybe some field, because you can get a lot of information, and also I think in your field, like that connected to sexual education, you need to think about what information you can get from users and maybe not. So how do you, what is your approach to this? How do you work with data and not too overwhelmed with all these numbers because it's so easy?
Analysis paralysis is really a real thing, and I still get into that trap quite often. But I guess the key here, what works for me, is again prioritization and having a very strict focus to not get overwhelmed. So, for example, I remember when I started working for a client, and there were a lot of things broken in the measurement, and I knew that I would just jump right in and I would do everything at once. But I knew one thing, that there was a drop off in conversion rate on the website. And I know that was super low, so there was something wrong with that. So I only made sure that the data and the analysis there is as accurate as possible. Once I fixed that, I could move on to other metrics. But usually, when you analyze what is wrong with the conversion rate and what is impacting that, you want to know more and more data points. And then you're like, okay, this is not working. Let's fix that. Okay, and for that part of the analysis, I need that metric, but that metric, I'm not sure if it's really accurate. So let's fix that. So you just constantly optimize and iterate, just like you would with optimizing your website or your product or whatever else it is. The same laws apply to analyzing as well.
Yeah, yeah. I know this situation when you have a lot of data, and sometimes it's really you need to focus. But I remember like struggles when you don't know like area to focus, because okay, I can improve it, I can improve this, okay, and so it's just kind of messy and kind of stressful. And for me, it was stressful because I just joined company like as head of growth, and oh, I need to figure out what to do.
Hmm.
Okay, I don't know what to do yet, but I will figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also you mentioned your experience in agency,
Hmm.
and also now you work like in company. As I remember, you worked with different companies, like different sizes in your agency. Like, what's maybe could you share what you learned about different approaches and different frameworks on different stages? Because by my experience, it might be completely different and completely different people, skills. So, share what you think about it.
I think the one thing that really stood out, one difference that really stood out for me when I worked for clients at an agency, was that when the big companies and small companies came to us with one goal, increase revenue. And as for a small company, it might be easy to figure out where this revenue comes from, and then you can quickly apply some quick fixes or low hanging fruit. And you have more control over the entire funnel and the bottom line in the end. At the same time, for big companies, when they tell you increase my revenue, I don't know where to start because the complexity is so big, because there are so many departments, because growth doesn't come just from ads or whatever or only marketing. It's a holistic thing. It's a one organism that works with many different systems, and these systems are connected. And for you to understand these systems, it takes a lot of time. But usually clients really want quick results, right? So I remember that for one company, we've been working for them for a few months, and they expected like really big numbers at the end of our collaboration. But we spent, I think, 2 months really figuring out what they really meant, what all these metrics meant. I was in calls with, I think, 15 people across all continents, having to spend like my evenings on the calls with these people, because they were like on the other side of the world, to find out how do I make an impact here, you know? So key here is to break it down. At big companies, you have to break down your growth into smaller pieces. So when you find out what is really driving your revenue, then you can break your team down into those squads. I call them squads. So, for example, there would be a retention squad, there would be acquisition squad, there would be, I don't know, whatever, something else, brand awareness or whatever, you name it. And then it's easier to, like, I know that these three things work together, and I have to tweak some things at the same time. At a big company, you have big budgets and resources, so you can work at the same time at different stages of the funnel, but you have to make sure that these growth teams are working separately so they can prioritize their own things within their expertise. At a small company, you can just see, look at the data, see where more or less the focus is, and just quickly start doing some small things, because usually the small things will work really fast and you can see results really fast, and that is basically the difference. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's.
yeah. You said about this one conversations with other people, other departments in
Mhm.
big company, and when we talk about growth, we also often talk about speed of experimenting and all this flexibility maybe, and all this willingness to improve the system. But by my experience, I know that obviously the bigger company is, the maybe slower it is. So how do push these people like inside, for example, when you work as in agency, like in your experience as a consultant, how to make these people move faster? Because obviously they have some issues because they hired you to make it maybe faster or make some improvements. How to push these people to move it, to experiment? Because obviously you will have a lot of friction. And so what did you do?
It depends on what kind of client comes to you. If they're open-minded and they are aware that they are slow and that some things are slowing them down, then it's easier to have this conversation because you're coming from the same level and you understand each other. And then you're like, okay, we can do fast experimentation, but in order to do that, we need to fix these few things. On the flip side, you have a lot of, I think that's the majority of clients. They basically are like, yeah, whatever you do, just do it quick, and they kind of put the ball on your side, like it's all up to you, and they don't think that the problem is lying on their end and within their processes. But for those who are open to changes within this organizational structure, I like to advise that there is a growth team. I would build a growth team that consists of a data analyst, a developer, maybe a brand manager, or some sort of a brand police, and content creator, depending on what the company is, but basically the basic growth team, and a decision maker, a person that really can quickly make decisions and is in all the meetings that where we discuss things, hypotheses. So we don't have to wait for somebody to get back to us within a week because they have to ask the CEO if they can do something or whatever. All the decision makers, or at least one person that can make all the decisions or has the right to make the decisions, has to be there so that it's quick, the feedback is quick, and we can start right away implementing things.
Yeah, it might help really, or like when you have this person like on meetings that you can just say yes or no and
Mm-hmm.
just to move it faster.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great when you have this trust from the company so you can experiment. In other way, to be honest, I don't think that you need to hire some consultants or agency, because like
Mm-hmm.
if you don't trust them, like I don't know if it would be interested for them.
Yeah.
But also, the question like that I have also like for you right now, based on my situation and also your career, you talked a lot about all these experiments, like systematic and holistic approach to business, to product companies, to growth, and all these things connected to revenue. But it also might sounds like that you love to create some new things and to grow some companies, but also right now you work as employee. Why, for example, you didn't decide to do some projects or to build own company? Why did you decide at this point of life to work as head of growth or growth manager in company? Because from for some people it might be look like very similar to entrepreneurship or something like that, maybe on another scale. So why did you decide to work in company, for example, even
Mm-hmm.
not to do something for yourself as product or company?
Mm-hmm. I like this question. I like the stability. To be honest, I like the stability, and also I treat my all these careers at different companies as a learning time. I admit honestly, I think about building a company or building something on my own day and night, but that kind of gives me yeah, stress, I would say. And I honestly, I wouldn't want to have my own company. I wouldn't want to be a founder. I wouldn't want to have this, because then I feel like it's not much fun anymore. Then I would have to be focused on really trying to get funding, try to get investors. I would have to take care of the finance, I all the stuff that I don't necessarily like, but I would have to do. In this case, I just choose one career path, one thing that I really like, and I can do this as this role at this specific company, and that's it. But as I'm learning at these different companies and I'm collecting experiences, also while coaching some of my mentees, I learn about problems that people or heads of growth or growth managers encounter, and I find solutions because I encounter the same problems, and I create like templates, I create videos, explanations, frameworks, a lot of stuff that I know I would pay for myself. So I have this little secret folder there on my in my drive where I'm collecting all these things, and I'm waiting for the day when I will have the motivation in time to actually package it and sell it and just have a little, passive income somewhere on the side, but nothing more than that.
I love that, to be honest, you are honest with yourself about okay, I like this, like, and I like stability, and I like what I do right now. But at that point of time, for example, maybe you don't have idea, it's like another reasons, and I just want to have stability and job, and that's great because I heard like some in different stories from different people who talk, oh, I need some idea, or I need something else, or I'm not good enough. But sometimes you need just to answer yourself honest, okay, it's not that I want right now. I just want to do this. Because I have some also periods in careers when I just decided don't do anything, and that's also great. And this short periods of time, yeah. And sometimes, like maybe a few weeks ago, months, I don't remember, I just decided to left a company and to do something for myself just because I have mood and I have energy for doing this. Yeah, so I understand because also like often thought about different things and day at night and all this. Yeah,
Hmm.
and it's maybe after like understanding myself, like, and to when I started to listen myself, even body or emotions, like when I do something, I I found that balance and some point of time people, so I decided, okay, let's try. I know probably I will fail, but even after failure, I know myself I will sell it to some company and I would have some great positions and a great salary. Yeah, so I just always have backup plan. Yeah, maybe
That's
it's
the
because
spirit.
yeah, maybe it's because I'm anxious and I'm from Ukraine because we have a lot of crisis in yeah, yeah, and it's just we have jokes that or that we joked maybe 5 years ago with friends that every like 5 or 10 years we have a revolution in our country. Yeah, so we have a permanent crisis, so you need to adapt to it and to
Mm.
live some on some in this area. And you talked like a lot about work and all this joy, but I think that like jobs that we do, all this about experimenting, about managing modeling, and all this revenue fancy stuff, I guess that it's obviously it's not for like for each person in tech because you might love something, might not. But what do you think? Person maybe or should be or have some I don't know strengths, I don't know something as that this person will great fit in this growth management role or something like that, because there are a lot of stress, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of some hard things. So could you share your thoughts like
Yeah. So I think what makes a great head of growth or growth manager is, again, I have to say it again, being ready to fail mentality, or so-called growth mindset, where you treat failures are as opportunities to learn, because you're going to fail a lot, and then you need to really find, you shouldn't be kind of crying over your failures and what you've done wrong, but you have to be like, oh nice, I failed, what did I learn today? So that is really the most important thing, because if you don't have that, then you're going to go through a mental breakdown or some sort of a burnout, because yeah, things are like 1 in 10 or maybe even more experiments is a winning experiment. The rest is just trying. Another thing is communication, because as head of growth, you will have to, you lead the team and the business towards stellar growth, and you make the decisions, you make a call to do a pivotal change maybe, or make some changes, big changes into the product or whatever that is. There are going to be decisions that are really difficult, and you will have to justify them, because you're going to have to convince the founders and investors that this is the way to go. And their really stakes are high, so you need to really learn how to have conversation about these things and support it with data. But yeah, I think also what's important is that you need to have good leadership skills, because taking the team with you on this journey is really something that requires a bit of a charisma, and also being able to motivate people to, to just grab whatever they have, whatever tools they have, and just get their hands dirty, and start working. Because really, at a startup especially, things are really changing quickly, and people can get really demotivated from one day to another. So you need to keep it all under control there, and make sure that you have something in store for them. There is something exciting, and there's this clarity that you can offer them. Yeah, and another thing is, I guess, as a bonus tip, meditate a lot, because as I mentioned, clarity is really important, and meditation gives you this clarity in your mind, because as a head of growth, you're involved in many different things. On a daily basis, you're, like I said, a Swiss knife. So you're doing analytics, you're doing into investors, you're doing high level strategy planning, but also setting up on the side in the meantime some Google ads just to test something, or checking that Google optimize experiment that you're running. And very often you can get blurred, your goals really can, or your focus can get blurry, or you can get into rabbit holes. But you need to have this moment of, oh, I'm there again, I'm deep into something again, I shouldn't be there. And this moment of awareness is really something that pulls you out, and makes you focus on what is the most important at this very moment. And that helps you as a person, but it helps you also your team. And they see this and feel it, and therefore they feel safe with you. They feel like, you know what you're doing, the company is going to do great because we're doing these things, and this is all figured out, and that's all under control.
Yeah, got it. Yes, thank for sharing this experience and knowledge. And like during our conversation, we talk a lot about joy and all this pleasure to work as head of growth, yeah, and all this stuff. But to show maybe full picture, do you have some scenes, area of work, or something in your job or industry that you really don't like or even hate?
I think one of the things that I don't like about the industry that I work in is the fact that it's so freaking difficult to get traction. Because in sex tech, you're very limited. You can't advertise on Facebook, or at least you're very limited. Google is the same. Sent to come to you with everything. And when there is a question like, okay, who's going to do this? And then your all the eyes go towards you. I know there is nobody else to do this. I'll do it. Okay. But yeah, that's
Yeah,
the annoying thing.
yeah, I understand it. I know that's a minus of had this fancy title like head of growth and all this stuff, because everything in company, like waiting that you will be lead and responsible for all this growth, but you also need to communicate that it's not only your job and
Yeah.
you have help, but you also need to do something to achieve this growth. You are not the, like several bullet on some or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, because you need guys, you need to work too, and much better.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
and you also like mention and advertise a bit your mentorship and coaching. And could you tell me more? Why do you do this? Like, why do you mentor and coach people? Is no, is it like hobby or revenue stream or maybe some other motivation? Why do you do this?
Then, well, I have to tell you one keyword here, serendipity. Again, creating the right conditions for serendipity. Because when I just applied Growth Mentor, I just thought, oh, it's fun, I would like to experience this. I would like to get access to this network of people. And I don't know what I'm going to do there, who I'm going to talk to, what I'm exactly going to advise on. I'm just going to let faith decide who's going to come to me with what kind of questions. And then I will get a feeling of where, if I would like to be maybe freelancer full time, or maybe I can get some ideas for my own products, or maybe I can find a new job there, or whatever that is. I just knew that there would be so many possibilities. I just didn't have a specific goal there. And it just happened that while talking to so many of these mentors and mentees, I got a couple of ideas for a few of my products, and I even got an opportunity to test some of these products. So I already have a proof of concept, and I already know that these products really work, and the people that are using it are very happy. So the only thing that I have to do is just put it out there and sell it, and that's actually my goal. That's what I would like to do. But I got there not because I planned it, but just because I created the right environment for this, luck or this opportunity to appear.
Yeah, that's great that we have a lot of in common in this approach and about opportunities because it's also one of my motivation to talk with other people to just to understand, maybe sometimes help, but also like, to sometimes to understand that you are not alone, you are not crazy. Yeah, there
Yeah,
are a lot.
that's a good
Yeah,
one. That's a good one. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
a lot
I
of
share this. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, I'm not alone. I'm not crazy one because yeah, and also the next question like related to this about feedback because you also mentioned that you start doing something and you have feedback, maybe feelings, maybe from other people, and like in current world there are so much feedback to be honest because some person could tell you that you don't know anything, some other person will motivate you, and how to understand or maybe how to rank this feedback and to understand okay that's feedback, maybe some critiques, but I can improve it. And sometimes I also know like the situations when you just need to say, okay, thank you for feedback, but I don't think in as a way, and I won't do this. So how to split this like good feedback or like maybe positive feedback or maybe feedback that will help you from feedback that will hurt you or I don't know.
Mm-hmm. That's a tough one. I think one thing that will help you to figure out whether a piece of feedback is worth your while is that if you keep on hearing the same thing from many different people and you start to see a pattern, then you're like, oh, maybe I do that. Maybe I should stop that, or maybe I should start doing something. So that's one thing. I'm trying to think of an example where I got a piece of feedback where I thought, oh, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to do that. There was a situation once upon a time, but I really can't remember that. But it's just, I guess you just feel it. I mean, you feel it when somebody gives you feedback, either because they want to hurt you, which rarely happens, or because they don't know you very well and they just see something, like, oh, maybe you should smile more or whatever, but you just had a bad day at that moment. Or what you can also do is if you hear this piece of feedback that you don't agree with, you can take this as a baseline and try to ask more people if this is really the case, or yeah, without biasing them, of course, but you can just try and probe other people to see if they will say the same thing. And again, if you see the pattern arising, then you know that this is true. But if not, then you're just gonna drop it. Also, feedback, if it's about your work or operational stuff that you do, and you get feedback from somebody that is not an expert, has never done that before, that is also something that I would a grain of salt, because that's not, yeah,
Yeah.
somebody that has the authority to give you this feedback.
Yeah, and I also I think based on my experience, like when I got some I don't know professional or maybe some like a self confidence as a specialist, like in my job or in my areas to do, I also started to say more often that I don't think in that way. I don't think that it's also about communication, because like when you try to communicate this, you probably you won't say that you are a douchebag or something like that. You will try to communicate as as polite as possible and about this conversation. Sometimes I receive like very aggressive feedback about things that I do, and sometimes when I just say to person, okay, that's your opinion, just okay, just live with this opinion. I won't argue. When some person try to push me with some aggressive approach, sometimes I can just even block some people. And okay, I won't talk with you. I don't like this way of
Wow.
communication.
So what was the
Yeah,
most aggressive feedback you got that you had to
of
really
course, yeah,
even block people?
yeah. I got a lot of feedback, to be honest, because I communicate a lot with tech specialists from different countries, and like a lot of from Ukraine, because I am from Ukraine, and I got a few feedbacks that I am so emotional and stuff like that. That other people have more serious problems. You don't need to think about your problems and all the stuff. But I just remembered all situations in my childhood when another guy bullied me and told me a lot that boys don't cry and all this stuff. Yeah, and I remembered this situation, and after a few polite I don't know, asking for stop this conversation. At some point of time, I just blocked this person and left the chat. I thought the right solution, because
Mm.
sometimes you need to draw this line. Okay, that's your opinion. Just live with this, but I think in different way. And I didn't ask you. I didn't ask you about this feedback. So thank you a lot. Yeah, but I can solve my problems by myself.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so about our conversation, yeah, thank you for this time and for all these insights.
that's perfect. Awesome.
That's it. Unfortunately, I forgot to record goodbye part with Justyna because it's my first episode, and I would be very glad for your feedback about sound quality and all this technical stuff. And also, if you have some ideas about future guests, topics, format, just let me know in any social network. I'm open to feedback. And if you like this episode, content of this episode, please hit like and subscribe. See you.